Okay, this video is from the book, The Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're going in alphabetical order. We're on Emile Coué. So Emile Coué is the guy who used to have these positive affirmations to improve your mood, your self-esteem for the day. And he would say, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And there were jokes about this. You know, Brian Tracy always says stuff like this, and I think it's nice, but it's also funny because Rodney Dangerfield used to joke about this, like in one of his movies, Fast Times or something like that. Rodney Dangerfield would say it, and it's funny. Okay, but anyways, positive affirmations are good. I would talk to myself sometimes. I say, I know I can do it, I know I can do it, and I'm getting myself psyched up to do something or something. I would sometimes say it out loud, and my kids would find that funny and tease me about that. Okay, anyways, the next one is Pierre Corneille, and he said, the manner in which it is given is worth more than the gift. Yeah, of course, the style and the attitude is relevant. You know, and there's another saying, I forget who said it, but he who gives first gives twice. Okay, or gives early. All right, the next one, Julio Cortázar, he's a writer. He said, the novel wins by points, the short story by a knockout. After the age of 50, we begin to die little by little in the deaths of others. Okay, kind of sad. All right, and now sort of the highlight person of today is going to be Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter is one of the smartest women who ever lived. She's probably the best female writer who ever lived. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Ayn Rand was the smartest woman who ever lived. And Ayn Rand is a much deeper philosophical thinker than Coulter. But Coulter, if you actually read her books, you will see she is very, very funny and clever. Okay? Okay, the first line from Ann Coulter, she was born in 1961. She said, a word to those of you who are not yet offended by something I have said. Please be patient. I am working as fast as I can. Her next line, if we are so cruel to minorities, why do they keep coming here? With regard to the USA. That's the other thing too. Anytime a woman is really great at something, everybody always, goes after it and say, oh, she's a bitch, she's terrible, she's awful, she's a bitch. You know, why is she a bitch? Because she's a genius? She should apologize for that? No, she's a genius and she's really funny and she should be proud of that, you know? Okay. Okay, I also am going to say something a little bit about minority stuff in the United States. My mother is from Puerto Rico. My mom is an off-the-boat Puerto Rican. She's more of a minority than most of the minorities in this country. And just I want you to know the attitude of the minority people that came here a long time ago. She said to me, she goes, you are so lucky to live in America. Forget about Puerto Rico. Forget about learning Spanish. She said that to me one time because I was really eager to learn Spanish one time. And she actually should have taught us from birth, but she didn't. And my father kind of looked down on it because back in those days, everybody had the attitude, America is the best country the world has ever seen. It's the best in the world by far. All these other countries are third world crap holes. Why would you want anything from these other third world crap hole countries? Okay, there was this America first, it's by far the best. That was the attitude of the people in those days. And I was sort of raised with that in the back of my mind when I was growing up. And then as we got a little older, my mom wanted us to learn Spanish. But once the kids learned how to say no, like in preschool, we didn't really want to learn it. And then in high school, we just took it for the grade. And it wasn't until later, when I was in med school, that I got serious about really wanting to learn Spanish again, because I had a lot of Spanish-speaking patients. And I started talking more to my mom in Spanish. And then, it's a long story, but after she died is when I got most serious about Spanish. I would talk a little bit with her in Spanish. And I wrote a book about Spanish, but my Spanish really wasn't that good. Okay, anyways, my mother was so poor when she's grown up. She's actually grew up in a barn with the farm animals because the father left her. That's a long story. Basically, he cheated on her mother, and her mother, hit him a couple times, and he said, screw this, and he walked away, and he never came back. So she lived in a barn with her cousins. Her cousin let him live in a barn at the farm. So anyways, my mom was really poor, and all her family was really poor. But her father is the smartest man in all of Puerto Rico. He's known as the genius of the island. And luckily, my mom and her brothers and sisters, they're all really smart. There's a whole bunch of PhDs, doctors, and all this stuff coming out of that family. You wouldn't even believe it. Anyways, my mom was so poor she walked to school barefoot every day because she didn't have any other. She only had one pair of shoes. She didn't want to get it dirty, and then she put them on at school. She had to take a job. All of them had these minimum wage jobs. The oldest brother went in the army, gave his salary to the family. They had it tough. My father was from Ireland, okay? And that's another thing, too, I mentioned, all this stuff about hyphenated Americans, I think that's a bunch of BS. Teddy Roosevelt said that was wrong a long time ago too. And I say, look at myself. Am I a poor, underprivileged Puerto Rican, or am I an evil white oppressor? All of this stuff is based on hatred of white Christian people, because you have to remember the goal of the Billionaire Club was to get rid of the Christians, because they saw the Christians as too much being difficult to control. Because the Christian says, my loyalty is to God. I will do whatever is right in the eyes of God. They don't want people like that. They want conformist, low IQ, easy to control people. Okay, so they said the first thing that needs to be done is all the white Christians have to be gotten rid of from the surface of the earth because they're too difficult, they're too obstinate, they're too difficult to control, it's too difficult to brainwash them. So that's what you see, all this multiculturalism and this gaslighting, it was done for that purpose. And that's why all those countries have their borders being ripped open and they're being flooded with persons who really don't want to contribute to those countries, okay? That's why that's all happening. There's nothing ambiguous about it, okay? And what I'm trying to tell you is back in the day, the Hispanics that came to America, they wanted to be Americans, all right? They were so thrilled to be in America, it's not even funny. And, you know, Ireland's being genocided, it's being destroyed, it's being brutalized, they've been slaves for 1,000 years to the British, and nobody cares about them. Why? Because they're Caucasian Christians and the goal is to destroy them, okay? Why does no one care about what happened to the people in France? Because it's part of this, you know, billions of dollars being put into this goal of destroying all the Caucasian Christian countries and peoples from the earth, because the feeling is if they can be done, the feeling of the controllers of the world is that everyone else will be easy to control. They're the only group that's seen as difficult to control. They think everyone else will be easy to control. So that's why they're the target of all this abuse, okay? And that's why you always hear all these bad things about them, because they're the ones, they don't want all this art and literature and theater and all this ennobling stuff and freedom and free speech. No, no, no. They want slaves, okay? And you can't have slavery and have Christianity long term. It won't persist with slavery. It just won't. Okay, so anyways, my father was from Ireland. Let's see. And when he came here as a middle-aged man, I remember one time I went to a grocery store with my father. It was a new Cubs food grocery store. And my father started crying. And I said, "Dad, why are you crying?" And he says, "You don't understand. I knew that he grew up. I had visited his home in Ireland. It was a little tiny building, and the floor was dirt. He grew up with a dirt floor. And one of his uncles had a little food store, and it was just like two little tiny rooms, and a lot of times the shelves were half empty. And my dad said to me, they feared starvation when he was growing up. The only reason he got to go to school was because the Christian brothers let him go for free. A lot of Irish didn't have a chance to get educated. My dad was a valedictorian. That's how he got to go to college. My dad said to me, he said, "You don't understand. In America, you lift up a payphone and there's a dial tone. You walk into a store and it's full of food." He says, "In other countries, nothing works. The people are starving." Yeah, that's right. Only things that create a wealthy, prosperous, healthy country where the people are nice to each other, you're going to see it's capitalism, the Constitution of America, and Christianity. Those are the things that make a society good. Don't get me wrong, they're not perfect. There's always going to be problems, but that's what's going to give you your best chance to have a society where people have those types of ethics. Love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek, give them the benefit of the doubt. That what you do to the least of my brethren, you're doing to me. That mentality creates a nice society, okay? Okay, Ayn Rand continues. So anyways, both of my parents that came to America, dirt poor, got graduate degrees, had successful careers, okay? That was before the days of affirmative action. I think affirmative action is used mostly to promote puppets. Okay, I'm a Puerto Rican. I'm the smartest Hispanic doctor in the whole world. Not a single minority organization contacts me. The medical system never wants me to be in the spotlight because they don't want me saying all the stuff about drugs don't work. Are you kidding me? But I do think it's a little funny because you have all these mediocre puppets that are promoted and put in front of the public all the time. But you don't see, real smart minorities like Thomas Sowell. You don't see him put in front of the public, okay? Anyways, here's what Ann Coulter says. She said, "Diversity is a disaster. It increases transaction cost. Even if evolution were true, it does not disprove God. God believers do not need evolution to be false, but atheists need evolution to be true. That's why there is mass panic whenever somebody mentions the vast and accumulating evidence against the theory of evolution." Yeah, by the way, evolution as it is taught to school children is taught as a religion. You don't really understand it if you don't know it. And I can tell you, I was an A+ student in evolutionary biology at Stanford University. The arguments for evolution are very weak when you look at it as how do you explain the origin of life? How do you explain the origin of complexity of life? You can't get there with evolution. Origin of life, that's geologic chemistry. That's not even biologic chemistry, okay? I've given other lectures on that. I don't want to get into all that. But what I thought was amazing, here's this lady, she's a lawyer, and she wrote the funniest book ever written on evolution. It's full of all kinds of funny quotes. "Far from showing a gradual change with one species slowly giving way to another as Darwin had hypothesized, The fossil record shows vast numbers of new species suddenly appearing out of nowhere. And then remaining largely unchanged for millions of years, and then disappearing. Almost like there was a big flood or something. That's what's funny, because the origin of life fits the Bible better than it fits any evolutionary biology textbook. Okay, and then she wrote some book called Godless, The Church of Liberalism, and she had a lot of funny titles, things like The Creation Myth, On the Sixth Day God Created Fruit Flies. She also mentioned Jerry Falwell's Liberty University had the #1 debate club in the country. Okay, here's a quote by John Dewey. You can't make socialists out of individualists. Yeah, he was part of the group that was big on destroying the schools. He's a scumbag. Okay, Ann Coulter, for the demo you-know-what rats, their goal was to control the schools, and in one generation, no one would be able to read. Yeah, they destroyed the schools. They pushed the new method of the look-say method, sight reading, and all of a sudden, all these kids started developing dyslexia, and literacy in the United States just plummeted. And they intentionally choose terrible books for freshman year of high school, like Julius Caesar, Mockingbird, Great Expectations, Catcher in the Rye. Those are terrible books for first-year high school students to read. They make kids hate reading. And they do that on purpose because they want the kids to hate reading, so they never read and they become illiterate dummies, or functional illiterate dummies. Okay, Ann Coulter continues. It is well past the time for liberalism to be declared a religion and banned from the public schools. No other religion has the right to propagandize to children for 12 years, 6 hours a day. That's absolutely correct. The kids in the public schools are basically taught that there is no God, life is meaningless, your life has no meaning, so you might as well get drunk, get stoned, have sex, have fun, be promiscuous, and don't really take anything seriously. Okay, Christianity inspires, says life has meaning and you want to do the best you can in the eyes of yourself, your family, and your God. Okay, that motivates. Okay, God is a creator, you can be a creator too. That motivates. We're all part of a struggle against good and evil, and do your part for good. That motivates. Okay, being an atheist saying that life is meaningless, that doesn't motivate. That's Epicureanism. Okay. Let's see. She says other funny things. She says, perhaps to improve girls' scores on the SATs, a section on blame shifting could be added to the math section. And I'm like, yeah. I've seen some women, they're like geniuses at that. My wife could lose on all forms of logic on an argument. And then she'd say, well, you don't care about me. You don't love me. You take me for granted. Why are we together? And then that means that she's supposed to get her way, whatever it is. Anything. Okay. Ann Coulter continues. Liberals' creation myth is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which is one notch above Scientology and scientific rigor. It's a make-believe story based on a theory that is a tautology. Survival of the fittest because they're the fittest, with no proof in the scientist's laboratory or in the fossil record. And that, after 150 years of very determined looking. We wouldn't still be talking about it but for the fact that liberals think evolution disproves God. The reason why the billionaires want to get rid of God is because if you have Christianity and you say that man is created in the image of God, all men are equal in the eyes of God, then they deserve rights. What they want to do is take away the rights of all the people. And so they have to say there's no God, then the ruler becomes the equivalent of God, and then the ruler says whatever they say goes. And what they're going to say is they want slavery. Okay? They want access immediately to your daughter whenever they want. They don't want you to be able to block. Just like the farmer owns the calf and he's going to make it into veal, they want to own your kids and make them into whatever they want. They don't want parents to be able to control the life of their children. This is what they want. People who haven't studied this, they don't understand. This is a serious stuff. Okay? Okay, Ann Coulter continues. Even if evolution were true, it wouldn't disprove God. Although God believers do not need evolution to be false, atheists need evolution to be true. Richard Dawkins famously said, Darwin made it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled atheist. The only evidence for Darwin's theory of evolution is fake evidence, and every time Darwiniacs are caught hawking fake proof, they complain that it's merely a gap in their theory. The Darwiniacs play a shell game with the evidence, but the evidence is never under any of the shells. The point isn't that school children should be taught about the controversy. School children should be taught the truth. Yeah, that's also the case. You'll see tons of the stuff in these evolutionary textbooks. They're faked. Okay? They don't tell the students the truth in the college either about all the problems with the fossil record for supporting so-called Darwinism or neo-Darwinism, okay? They don't tell them, about the Cambrian where all these phyla suddenly appeared out of nowhere without Darwinian ancestors. They don't tell them about that the pepper moth data was all faked, okay? Where they were sticking moths to the tree, and they faked that, okay? They don't tell them the truth that Haeckel's drawings were a fraud. They're fake. They don't tell them about the Piltdown Man and other fake things in the history of so-called evolutionary biology. You'd be amazed how much BS there is. You're not going to create complexity and sophisticated design by scratching box music with a paperclip. That's what a mutation is, like scratching an audio CD with a paperclip. You're not going to improve on Beethoven and Mozart and Bach and Handel, okay? Here's another quote by Coulter. If Darwinism sounded fishy, get it? As a means to create the eye. It's comical as an explanation for the intricacies of the cell. Yeah. The cellular biology is so unbelievably complex, and the fine-tuning arguments for both astronomy, for biochemistry, for cell biology, they're so far beyond any of this Darwinian nonsense. You can't explain it. You really can't. Believe me, I know science. Since I was a little guy, 17, 18 years old, I've been studying it constantly, and I can tell you, there's no other reasonable explanation than God. There just isn't. Okay, Ann Coulter, she continues. Christianity fuels everything I write. Being a Christian means that I am called upon to do battle against lies, injustice, cruelty, hypocrisy. All the virtues of the Church of Liberalism. And then she continues. Public school teachers are now the new priesthood, with traditional religion being ridiculed. Okay, so that's what it's all about. I think that's my last quote from Ann Coulter. Yeah, that's it. So anyways, I hope that was interesting.